slides, you will see that the surface condition rating given by Wieniawski has been considered to pick the GSI value in order to quantify the GSI approach. And you will, if you really study this condition, surface condition rating, the surface condition, this affects the interblock movement, which I have told that the GSI takes care of the interblock movement, interrock block movement. Now coming to the chart, the matrix developed by Hook and Brown, the structure, this is the rock structure on the vertical, and the horizontal, it is the surface condition, right? And these are the 5 conditions of the surface, and these are the 6 rock structure classes. Okay. Now in the field, you see the condition, you try to match the condition with your condition, and you pick one value. So structure of the rock mass has been qualitatively, you see here, the qualitatively defined in terms of interlocking of rockiness of the rock pieces, and with decreasing surface quality represented by the surface conditions here. Okay, with the decreasing surface quality represented by the surface condition, the chances of movement or the dislodgement of rock pieces increases. Initially, this was proposed qualitatively, as you can see here, no quantification of structure and surface condition here, but later on it has been quantified. I will touch upon this also, that how it has been quantified, how to obtain GSI using the numbers in the field from the data collected in the field. Now, if you look into the one box of this chart, like I have shown here by dotted blue circle here, the GSI value in one box vary in a range of 10 to 20. So you will have to carefully study the given description, as like in this case for blocky and disturbed, it is given that folded and or faulted with angular blocks formed by many intersecting discontinuity sets, and on the upper row you will see that the fair, your discontinuity condition is fair. So we have got this block of the matrix, and here the GSI value ranges between, you can say this is 30 column, this is 40, so it's around 45, this is 45, so this is less than 35 and slightly more than 40. So 30, you can say 32 to 42. You can take a range also as a beginner. Okay, if you are not sure, you can start with a range. Now coming to GSI values for heterogeneous rock mass or the heterogeneous rock masses. This has been developed by Marinos and Hook in 2001, and this is from the fleece rock of Alps. Okay. Now, why I want to show this figure here is that you can compare fleece rocks of Alps with the Murray Formation of Himalayas, which are there near Riasi and near other places. Like in Chenani Nashri Tunnel, NH1A highway tunnel, where we have worked from Simfar, you will see that this Alps, these Murray formations were obtained there, which were also having the interlayers of sandstone, siltstone, and the claystone. Like here also, they have shown that if you have a mixed layer, mixed rocks, then how to get the GSI value. So this can help you in obtaining the GSI value in terms of in case of the mixed rocks, where siltstone, sandstone, and claystone are present. And you see these are having different strength also. Sandstone can have the UACS as high as 80-90 MPa, whereas the claystone at Chenani Nashri was having the UCS of 15 MPa. So you see, so much variation is the UCS value. So what value to take for designs in a mixed rock formations? What value of UCS should be taken? So this I will consider. I will again come with this figure in subsequent slides, and you will, and I have tried to collect the information from the various researchers, and we have tried to obtain the values which we have developed from our experiences in Chenani Nashi project. Now you see the mixed rocks. There's some photographs again taken from the publications of Marinos and Hook, 2001. You see this in the previous slide. If you see the previous slide, this A, B, C, D, E, and what should be the value of A, B, C, and D and E, and what is A is represented by, you can see here for A for figure 4A, thick bedded blocky sandstone. Fully sandstone is there. So what value should be taken? Then sandstone with thin siltstone layer. Then sandstone and siltstone in equal proportions. And then siltstone or silty shale with sandstone, like this. And I want to highlight here is that, you see here in the rock exposure on the surface, you see as the siltstone quantity is increasing, you will see that the weathering effect is also increasing. Okay, so for slope, for the design of slopes, what weathering effect should be considered while picking the GSI value? I will also touch upon this in subsequent slides. Now coming to the quantification of GSI. Earlier chart was mainly the qualitative approach to obtain the GSI. Now first, this is the quantification. This has been done by Kai et al. From Canada. He was working with Professor Kessler there. Now he's in Canada, Edmonton. So you will see that our surface condition has been quantified using joint condition factor JC, whereas the structure which represents the rock blockiness has been represented by the block volume in centimeter cube. Okay. So
sorry to interrupt you. Can you please use your cursor to show the values?
It's quick. I'm showing it. I am showing that. You cannot see it, cursor?
No. I'm not able to see the cursor.
But I am moving cursor with the presentation.
No, it is not being seen. I don't know about other.
That means.
सर वो कर्सर में सर दूसरा एक पॉइंटर आएगा, पॉइंटर एलईडी रेड कलर का आएगा, तो उसको चूज कर लीजिए, राइट क्लिक करके पॉइंटर चूज पॉइंटर राइट क्लिक कर दीजिए एक बार.
ओके
मतलब प्रेजेंटेशन पे सर राइट क्लिक करके पॉइंटर दूसरा चूज कर लीजिए, एक लाल सा आता है
पॉइंटर ऑप्शन.
यस सर शो पॉइंटर ऑप्शन,
लेजर पॉइंटर.
नो पॉइंटर, या
ओके फाइन. I am selecting that.
Okay sir, fine sir.
So can you see that now?
Not yet.
Okay, I have in my on my
screen. Yeah. Now cursor is there. Yes.
Okay, now you can see that.
Yes sir, it's working fine.
Okay.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rajbal Singh. In fact, I was thinking that all of you are seeing my cursor. Okay. So on y-axis you will see that block volume has been this rock structure has been quantified by block volume, and the surface condition has been quantified by joint condition factor. I will not go into the detail of how. I will just quickly scan the slides. I have slides, but I will just quickly scan those slides. But before scanning the slides, you will see that if you compare this GSI here with the RMR and Q, right? I'm not going to the detail of RMR, different parameters of RMR and Q. If you compare RMR and Q with GSI, you will find that in GSI, there is no water parameter, okay? There is no joint orientation parameter, which is there in RMR, okay? There is no stress condition parameter like SRF in Q, right? So we should not try any direct interrelation between RMR or GSI, or between between RMR and GSI, and between Q and GSI, because parameter wise these are not same, right? Now you see the joint condition can be obtained here by using joint waviness, large scale waviness, small scale waviness, and alteration. Like in case of this JWJS represent the Barton's JR, okay, joint roughness number, and JA represents Barton joint alteration number, and together these two represents the JC given by Kai et al., which I have shown in the previous slide, right? So you can see, you can go through this in different publications of Hook and Brown also. Now these are different how to get JS values, JW values, and JS values. Okay. Now coming to next quantification, which really I like, and this has been given by Solman and Uluze. And Uluze is from Turkey. He has attended the Indian conference, which has been organized by Engineering Geology in IIT Delhi, the international conference. He was there. So you might have met, some of you might have met him. And probably he is now the president of Tunneling Association, International Tunneling Association, or ISRM, I don't remember exactly. No, from Tunneling Association, I think. Now in this, you see the surface condition rating, SCR. And if it is clear to you, the slide is clear to you, in the top, something has been shown, that roughness, weathering, infilling, right? And these are the same 5 classes, but it has been quantified using roughness, weathering, and infilling. And this subclasses of this, you will, if you go into the 1989 publication of Wieniawski of RMR, you will find that this directly has been picked up from there. Okay, so this is how Solmes and Uluze quantified the surface condition rating. Okay, and then for structure rating, they have used the JV, the volumetric joint count, joint per meter cube. Right? You might recollect that RQD is also indirectly estimated using JV. That is, RQD is equal to 115 minus 3.3 JV. So somehow, or in another way, this rock structure rating is representing the RQD. And so SR, you can get SR value using this equation, that SR is equal to 79.8 minus 17.5 natural log of JV, and SCR, surface condition rating, using the rating of filling, the roughness, rating of weathering, and rating of filling. And using this, you can select the GSI value. Now, if we want to really correlate the GSI, or we want to obtain the GSI using RMR and Cube, then GSI is directly related earlier by Hook, before inventing this, before coming out with GSI values, that GSI is equal to RMR 76, RMR dash 76, and this is applicable for RMR more than 80. Then, if you consider RMR of 89 version, 1989 version, that GSI will be RMR 89 minus 5. So I want to highlight here is that if you are using 76 version rating chart of RMR, then GSI is equal to RMR. And RMR, what is RMR dash 76 and what is RMR dash 89? I will tell you in this slide itself. So this one is more than or equal to 23, whereas this one is more than or equal to 18. This is also important to remember. Now, if your RMR value is less than 23 in case of 89 version, then you should use the Q, Barton's Q, and this is not the Q, the Q dash, and GSI is equal to 9 natural log of Q dash plus 44, right? And Q dash is what? Q dash is considering 4 parameters. So they have not considered here the water and the stress. I have told you earlier that in GSI, water and stress not there. So Q dash is without water JW and without SRF. So Q dash is RQD upon JN and JR upon JA. And minimum value of Q dash, if you put all the values of RQD, JN, JR, JA, you will find that minimum value of Q dash is coming out is 0.0208, and corresponding to this Q dash value, the GSI is coming to 9. So this equation is applicable up to GSI value 9. Now coming to RMR-76. This is RMR with JW in 76 version. JW rating was 10. Okay, water reduction rating was 10, and so we will have to consider full water rating. That is, the condition is dry. No water is to be considered when we go for RMR-76, and joint orientation is 0 because in GSI no joint orientation effect is there. Similarly, in RMR-89, in this version, RMR water reduction water value has been taken to 15. So for 89, you will have to consider is dry. 15 is for dry. So you will have to take 15 and orientation 0. And that is why you will see this difference of 5. Here, 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 here of difference of 5 because of the rating of JW considered in 76 and 89 versions of RMR. Now, minimum value of RMR 76, 76 and RMR 89 are 18 and 23, considering 10 and 15 respectively. Now, if you look into, because if you subtract 10 and 15, you will see that this is 8 and this is 8. And this value you are getting from RQD 3 and joint spacing 5. So total 8 plus, so minimum rating. So therefore the minimum rating, that is, you will not get less than RMR-76 less than 18. Okay, using this approach. Now coming to the applications part, again the same figure. Okay, now Marinos and Hook suggested GSI for mixed, I have told you, mixed heterogeneous fly stock masses A to H depending upon the proportion of different rocks. Murray formations of Himalaya are similar to these formations of Alps, at least at this place near Riasi, near Chenani Nashri. Marinos and Hook also suggested to modify UCS and MI, uniaxial compressive strength, and the intact rock constant used in the Hook and Brown failure criterion. They have suggested to modify these values for the mixed rock masses. And they have suggested this table, which is shown here in the black color. Now, what is our experience is that application of table gives higher values of intact rock strength. And therefore, these values which has been suggested, like in case of C, in case of say A or B, use values of sandstone, straightway. You have slight, very thin layers of silt stone and thickly and completely sandstone in A and B conditions. A and B condition use values of sandstone for UCS and MI. For C, sandstone and siltstone in similar amounts. Reduce sandstone values by 20% and use full values for siltstones. So this is how they have given to compute the UCS for mixed rock masses for the applications of the Hook and Brown failure criterion. But from our experiences, from back analysis, what we have found is that for A condition, 90%, 90 is to 10, 80 is to 20, like this for different conditions. This can further be verified, okay, using study, and some of you might be interested to carry forward this work. They can really work upon it, that how the UCS in mixed rock formations can vary and how this should be taken for the design purposes. I want to highlight here is that the strength of the rock which is in the roof in case of tunnel is really dominating when we talk about the behavior of the rock mass, or when we consider the overall stability of the stability of the roof of the tunnels. Now coming to another application of GSI, and how I found it, this is really interesting multigraph, and this has been proposed by Russo in 2008. And you will see that it is a combination of 4 graphs, right? And in this, you will have to start from this one, right side bottom one figure, where the GSI values are given. And you see this joint condition rating, the quantification given by chi, and the block volume. Okay, so those plots have been given. Otherwise, if you have GSI value, you can straightaway use pick GSI value, keep GSI value here. Okay, and then you will have to move it like this, right? You will have to use these graphs like this. Now this is the sigma C, the UCS, and if you have GSI, sigma C, you can get the mass strength, the rock mass strength. Okay, I'm not going to the details of the correlations they have used here. You can find from the publications. Okay, now from GSI and UCS, you have got the mass strength, rock mass strength. Now from mass strength, if you have the overburden above tunnel, the tunnel depth or the depth of the tunnel or the overburden of the rock above the tunnel, right? You match it with that and you will get the competence factor, IC. Okay, you will get the competence factor. And again, now you will have to use here the RMR values, the rock mass rating values with the competence factor, and you will find the rock behavior in case of the tunnel or the ground condition for the tunneling. So this is being used by many designers to find out the ground behavior class for the NATM. Okay. Okay, one thing now important one which I missed is that this has been developed considering the hydrostatic stress, that is sigma H and sigma V is same. So as we go as we go deeper and deeper, that will be same, around below 400-500 meter deep, and for the circular tunnel. Now coming to the strength of rock masses, this is the failure curtain given by the Hook and Brown, and these are various parameters like MB. You know about sigma 1, sigma 3, UCS of the rock material. I will touch upon MB, reduced value of Hook and Brown rock material constant MI. MI is the rock material constant, and for rock mass it will reduce. And the equation is MB is equal to MI e to the power GSI minus 100 upon 28 minus 14 D. D is the disturbance factor. SID constants depend on rock mass characteristics, and S for intact rock, and tend to almost 0 for no tensile strength or no cohesion. And A here, this ranges between 0.1 to 6. Now MB, which is obtained from using MI values. You see, MI is represent the frictional properties of the rock material, and ultimately it depends on the mineral present in the rock. Therefore, MB also signifies the frictional properties of the rock mass. And as sigma 1 increases, sigma 1 increases with the increase in MB. In this equation, you will see as MB increases, sigma 1 increases. Because this will come, this will be required later on. That's why I have highlighted here. Now you see, for intact rock, from laboratory to field, in intact rock, the rock specimen is free from the discontinuities. So in case of intact rock, S is equal to 1, and as the number of joints are increasing, you will see the S value is becoming much less than 1. Now Hook et al. Has suggested how to get MB, S, A using GSI and D. They have also come out with a computer program from rock science, which is used widely to obtain the values of MB, S, and A, etc. using UCS, GSI, MI, and EI. And the page, the first page of RockLab is look like this. And here, if I can link it with the software which I have downloaded, Now you see here, sigma CI, they have given here the interactive charts also for different rocks. Some of you might have seen this, or some of you might not be knowing about it. So you can download this RockLab software. This is free of cost available. Now you can select it like this. You can from here also you can find out. Like GSI, again, this matrix is shown here for GSI. Okay, for MI value also they have given here for different rocks. What should be the MI values? Okay, similarly D for tunnels, and then for slopes, you can get it here. Okay, now so just to show you that you can use this software for general purpose, for slopes, for tunnels, and you will see here on the top of this right side that you will get the output, the Hook and Brown failure criterion parameters, the more Coulomb fit parameters you will get, and you can use these values for your numerical modeling. Now coming to the next, again the same one. So you can use this software to get the input parameter values using the GSI, the sigma CI or the UCS, the MI values, and D. Okay, the disturbance factor. Now I want to highlight here, in this presentation, I want to highlight that how to really select the MI value and the D value and what it signifies. Okay, what it signifies, I want to highlight here. Before that, now applications of Hook and Brown failure criterion, and where it is having limitation, this just I want to highlight that. Hook and Brown failure criterion is applicable to intact rock or to heavily jointed rock masses, which can be considered homogeneous and isotropic. Right? So that means the rock mass, that means it shall not be used in schistose rocks or in rocks where the properties are controlled by a single set of as bedding plane. Okay. And another thing is Hook and Brown failure criterion was developed to deal with the shear failure in rocks or rock masses, and thus applicable for sigma 1 more than 3.4 sigma 3. Why this? Because the transition from shear to ductile failure is when sigma 1 is equal to 3.4 sigma 3, as suggested by Mogi in 1966. Now coming to selection of MI and disturbance factor values, I will take around 10 minutes more, 12 minutes more. You see, MI relates to the frictional properties of rock, I've highlighted earlier, and changes with the type of rock, mineral composition, interlocking of grains, grain size, foliation, and weathering. See, with weathering, minerals are affected. Some are more weathering prone, some are less weathering prone. Some rocks are more weathering prone, some are less weathering prone. And accordingly, with time, okay, with weathering, the values will change. You see here the values in the table which has been picked up from the RockLab data. Okay, for basalt 25 plus minus 5, clay stone 4 plus minus 2, like this it has been given. So MI values are higher for coarse grained rocks. Generally it has been seen. Okay, generally it has been seen that these values are higher for coarse grained rocks. Lower value of MI 3 to 7 for softer rocks and carbonate rocks. Higher value of MI 15 to 20 for brittle, igneous and metamorphic rocks. For example, granite, gneiss. In laboratory, MI shall be obtained using 5 or more triaxial test data. Tests shall be carried out for confining stresses up to 50% of UCS. This is important. If suppose your UCS is 100 MPa, so confining stress for getting GSI should not be more than 50 MPa, right? Otherwise, you are going towards the critical state. Now, there are different approaches to get the MI values. Kai et al. They have suggested MI is equal to UCS upon tensile strength, and for more than or is equal to 8 MI values, they have suggested this. That means for softer rocks, you can use this. Hook and Brown, they have suggested MI is equal to, like this, in this equation, that UCS upon the tensile strength is equal to 0.81 MI plus 7. So if you have UCS tensile strength from triaxial test data, you can get MI. Arshad Nizar, they have given a generalized equation for different type of rocks. Like MI is equal to e to the power by this equation, where sigma t qt is the tensile strength and qc is the UCS. Now A, B, and C are the constant depending upon different type of rocks, igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic rocks. They have given the constant, and considering the studies on 26 cases, 59 cases, and 21 cases, and they have got really good correlation coefficient, regression coefficient, and these are the values of A, B, and C. Okay, so you can use for igneous rock, you can use this value of A and B and C, different type of rock. Okay, using QC and QT of that rock, and you can get the MI value for that rock. So this can also be used. But what I will suggest here is that you can use 2-3 approaches and see out of your curiosity where you are lying. Okay, right? And then try to understand how it varies. Because we should not blindly follow the table given by the Hook. We should consider the weathering, and when you test it in the laboratory, the weathering will be taken care of. Now coming into the disturbance factor D, I have shown you while showing the rock lab, I have shown you this one, this photograph, which is coming from that, which is there in that inbuilt in rock lab software. But okay, so now what is disturbance factor? I have tried to tabulate that in this table here. In this table, I have tabulated the ratings given by Hook and collected from various approaches also. And then I have segregated it for tunnels and rock slopes. And I have highlighted some things here on the side notes that D takes care of the disturbance of interlocking of the rock blocks of rock mass because of rock blasting and stress relaxation. So that means D is influenced by the rock blasting and the stress relaxation after the excavation, whether it is the excavation for the slopes or whether it is the excavation for the tunnel. And you will see that D is used in computation of MB and S. So you can see the effect of D. It is affecting MB and it is affecting S also. The value of D varies from 0 for undisturbed rock masses, and suppose for stress relaxation also there is no disturbance, then to 1 for very disturbed rock masses. While modeling, D value shall be applied only to the affected rock mass in the vicinity of the excavation. This is very important, I found. You see, we should not use D for full overburden in case of tunneling. Only the affected zone around the tunnel periphery. We should take care of D, which is coming out depending upon your disturbance to the rock mass. Otherwise, take D is equal to 0, because the rock mass beyond the affected periphery is not affected by the excavation, right? If you will reduce the if you increase the value of D from 0, so that means your results are safer. Okay. Two main issues while applying D are choosing a suitable value and extent of damage zone, right? So I want to highlight these two issues here. But before that, again the same graph and some more points here that depends upon the excavation quality. Again the same 0 for not damage and 1 for poor blasting. And in case of tunnels, you will see first 3 rows of table are used for tunnels, and D varies from 0 to 0.8 for tunnels. And for squeezing ground conditions, it's 0.5. For hard rock, poor quality blasting, 0.8. And for slopes, if you compare from the D values of tunnel, these are having higher values of D. Higher values of D means more disturbance. That means because the stress are relaxed immediately. Stress are not confined. So there are more higher values of D here. So D values from 0.7 to 1. Now extent of damage and D value. Some of the works I have tried to obtain from the literature, which I have highlighted here, that Chang and Liu in 1990 found that a zone of blast damage extended for a distance of approximately 2 meters. VD is equal to 0.7 and on all large excavations. So that means because of blasting, D, that zone is around 2 meters. In case of large excavation, and large excavation are generally planned in a good rock mass. Okay. On slopes, the effects of heavy blast damage as well as stress relief due to removal of the overburden of the rock mass results in disturbance of the rock mass, and therefore more values of D in case of slopes when we compare it with the D value in case of tunnels. The surface of the excavated rock slopes analyzed for the stability are not under confinement, and the stresses, contrary to tunnels, are most relaxed immediately after excavation. Hoek and Diederich have considered D is equal to 0.3, which is not given in the table for rock slopes. And this is considered for the analysis of carefully excavated rock cuttings in folded sedimentary rocks. And that's why I've told you that you can try with different values of rocks and you can come out with your value of different values of D, and you can come out with your value of D for a particular condition. Okay, and for that you will have to have monitoring and you will have to have the back analysis. Now coming to the extent of excavation damages in slopes. Now here this figure shows that this is the original bench and this much has been blasted. Okay, and this is the muck pile after the blasting. This is the height of the bench. Okay, and this is the bench which is damaged behind the excavated slope. Now how it is varying, the damage zone varying, this T is varying depending upon the blast. See, large production blast, T will be 2 to 2.5 times H. And as you are controlling the blast, carefully control production blast with a free phase 0.3 to 0.5 H. And in case of D is equal to, when there is no blast, machine excavation, though it has been suggested that D should be 0, but if the bench height is very high, then stress relaxation will come into the picture and you can reduce the D value. You can increase the D value accordingly. So while designing, while computing, while taking the value of the, while picking the D value, you should think that for what purpose, what are our field conditions are there, and how we should take care of the D values, and similarly the MI values. Now coming to the extent of damage in tunnels, because up to the damage zone you will have to take the D value, and beyond that you can take D is equal to 0. Poor blast design can result in damage extending as much as 3 meters into the rock for a 10-meter diameter tunnel. This has been suggested by Hoek. Damage zone due to stress relaxation may vary with rock mass type, in situ stresses, support system, and other things. The other means delay in support. The stress relaxed damage zone or loosened zone may not extend more than the blast damage zone in non-squeezing ground condition. If timely and effectively, I am talking about the effectively, the supports are installed. Because in some cases, near portal zone, when the steel ribs are installed, there is no backfilling. So that will not be effective support. Unless until we have backfill behind the steel rib support, that will not act as a support. So we should have effective supports. In case of squeezing ground condition, the stress relaxed damaged zone or broken zone is more. In case of passive steel rib supported tunnels, Dr. Jetwa, he has monitored the tunnels, the squeezing ground conditions, where the tunnels where squeezing ground conditions have been observed, and he has found that the broken zone or the plastic zone is up to 6 times the tunnel radius. I want to, in case of effective supports, the broken zone or plastic zone shall be judiciously selected on case-to-case basis. It shall not be more than 6 times the tunnel radius, because 6 times is for the steel rib supports. Now we have the active supports, the rock bowl, the short plate, the lattice girders, which are really really working as the effective supports. And this further 6 times this shall be further checked by monitoring and back analysis. I want to add here one more point, that you have designed, suppose you have designed the rock bolt, right? The rock bolt length. Generally, the rock bolt length is designed beyond the zone of influence. Okay, so that much you can consider in the beginning for D, for increasing the D value, and then you can monitor and back analyze the things to play with the bolt length in your designs, in the support designs. Now coming the interaction between the effect of D on MB. Now from this equation you will find that MB, ratio of MB and MI is equal to this. This is the equation given by Herb, and this can be represented as X. Then I have tried to plot it, the geological strength index with factor X with different values of D in this graph, and then geological strength index with percent reduction in X factor values on increasing D from 0 to 1. And you will find that this is for GSI is equal to 60. This line represents for D0 and this one is for D1. So on increasing D, factor values X or MB value for the same MI value decreases. For GSI value 60, there is sharp rise after this for more than 60. Okay, there is sharp rise in X factor. Factor X value reaches to 0.7 when GSI is equal to 90 and D is equal to 0. Probably we will not have any rock mass which is having GSI more than 90. So I have limited it up to GSI is equal to 90. Thus, it is inferred that MB values cannot be more than 70% of MI values. Now, one or two slides on the variation in different properties of rock mass with the weathering, which can really highlight that when you are going to the field for collecting the GSI value, how you should keep these things in mind. You will see that degree of weathering is given in the first column: fresh, slightly weathering, moderately, highly, completely, and RQD factor for hard rocks and the soft rocks. Okay. In the above table, values for hard rocks have been derived from the work of Gurushek and Kilik and Hook and Price. Now, if suppose you have, okay, I will come to that later. The values for soft rocks have been proposed by myself and Dr. Mitra on the basis of our study. Okay, and what does it mean? Above table implies that a fresh hard rock having RQD 100% will have RQD is equal to 0 to 0.5% when it completely weathered. So if it is having 100, it will be 80 to 90, 70%, 30 to 50%, and 5%. Similarly here in case of soft rocks. So with the weathering, the reduction percentage in soft rocks is faster, and which is obvious. Now, if you look into the different, because on other parameters, the effect of weathering, Because of disintegration of rock mass due to weathering, the GSI value reduces. Weathering effects penetrates inside the intact rock pieces, influencing UCS and MI values. So if suppose we have a fresh rock cut, slope, okay, we have a fresh slope, slope rock cut in a softer rock, okay, and we are designing the supports considering that, and we found that using SMR and other kinematic and other approaches, we found that there is no support is required. But you see, with weathering, the rock mass behavior will change. And how you will see that intact rock strength will reduce, will weathering, the spacing of discontinuities rating will also reduce, its condition of discontinuity release will also reduce, and number of observations will also reduce. Now, in case of harder rock mass like granite, the gneisses, okay, it may be okay for longer term, but in case of softer rocks, you will have to take care of the time for which you have the support. The slope is designed. The support is designed for the slope. Okay. Now, for concluding the talk, you will agree with me that geological strength index and Hook and Brown failure criterion shall be used with the understanding of the rock mass behavior. Input parameters for design of the rock masses which are prone to weathering shall be judiciously selected considering the weatherability of the rock mass and also considering the time for which you have to design the supports or the slope. For temporary support, okay, you can go ahead, but for a long-term stability, you should consider this. Other issues highlighted in the talk shall also be taken into consideration while selecting the input parameters values for numerical analysis, like selecting D values, like selecting MI values, and like how to reduce the D values with depth, or when shall we take 0D values and when shall we take higher values of D. With this, I come to the end of my talk, and I want to thank you all for your kind patience hearing and for giving your valuable time for the talk and to make it really happening the attempts of ISRM ET. Now I am changing the mode. I am now coming to the